Well, welcome to week 4 of Connect Groups. I hope that you found somebody this week to invite to Connect Groups and that they consider coming with you this week. Again, if it's your first time, thanks for coming. You'll be great. People around you will help you out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So Tom, chapter 4, Cain and Abel. What is your big thought this week?
Again, it goes back to last week's chapter 3, where we talked about how all of a sudden the wheels start to come off because of the sin of Adam and Eve. And now we see that being passed down from generation to generation. And we see the story of Cain and Abel. And of course, the story ends with Cain becoming the first murderer in the Bible. And I always remember that, by the way, because a lot of times it's easy to get confused on who murdered who. And I always think of he wasn't able to defend himself. So Cain was the murderer. Abel was his brother that he killed. And the Bible says in chapter 4 that Abel was a shepherd and Cain was a farmer. And early in that chapter, it talks about how they were to bring an offering to God. And so Abel brought of his flock, Cain brought of his crop. And Cain's sacrifice was not accepted or respected by God, and he became angry. That's how Cain became angry and became jealous of his brother. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the beginning, the study. For Abel, it was the beginning of the end. And I believe the Bible says, if you take it in its entirety, that the reason that Abel's sacrifice was accepted was because his was a blood sacrifice. Cain's was not a blood sacrifice. And so that was kind of the beginning of their problem, and Cain becomes the first murderer in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
You have to feel for Adam and Eve at this point and the sin that they brought into the world and how it's affecting even their kids. So Tom, what is the big question for this week?
So the big question is to kind of peel back the layers of that story and to ask yourself and to discover, maybe as a group, what the real sin of Cain was.
Yeah. And be willing to explore this together. You might end up having different opinions about what Cain's sin was, but be willing to talk that through together and be willing to talk through why you believe what you believe in this sense. We're not looking for a specific answer necessarily. We want to just talk through it.
And I think verse 7 of chapter 4 might give you a little insight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of Connect Groups this fall. Have a great time together. Again, Connect Groups and hosts, thank you for what you're doing to make this time together happen. We're excited to see how we're growing in relationship with one another together. Have a good time, and we'll see you next week.